Thank you very much for sharing that, Mohammed. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next news as well. Now we move on to Europe. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has praised the leadership of US President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, saying the Western alliance has become more lethal under their guidance. Rutte has made the remarks today as NATO defense ministers gathered in Brussels to discuss ongoing support for Ukraine amid the ongoing conflict. He credited the strengthening military readiness and strategic direction provided by the US's leadership for enhancing NATO's ability to respond effectively to global security threats. The comments highlights the deepening cooperation within the alliance as member nations continue to coordinate efforts to support Ukraine and deter aggression. Let's listen into what Mark Rutte has said.
I particularly want to thank President Trump and you personally for your leadership and the whole team for the fact that NATO is now much stronger, more lethal.
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Mohammed Osman. He's an international relations specialist, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for staying with us. Now, we have seen different opinions from all our guests, that Europe is moving too slow, Europe is not doing enough. What's your analysis also now that Europe is evolving from peace project without arms to one that includes more arms for defense? What are the key challenges and opportunities for Europe as it strengthens its defense capabilities, according to you?
Of course, it's logical that Europe would move towards further militarization and upping their defense spending over the past 3+ years and in the foreseeable future due to the war in Ukraine, because they feel threatened by potential Russian expansion. Maybe this is logical, but the idea of trying to inflate or intensify the inflammatory rhetoric against Russia and putting Europe on a war footing with Russia, I don't think that's the way to go. Now, the European leaders and European officials and NATO officials like Mark Rutte here are making very silly comments and very silly claims that Russia is preparing to attack NATO. Mark Rutte said that the other day, that Russia is preparing to attack NATO. Russia cannot even get done with their own war in Ukraine. Yes, they are advancing on the ground, but they did not achieve a decisive victory, even though they have been fighting for over 3 years right now. So I think that the fear mongering that NATO is carrying out is because they need to mobilize the European populace and the European public opinion behind them once more in order to settle for more military spending, more escalation with Russia, and more support for Ukraine. It seems that the Europeans are not interested in ending the war in Ukraine at this point. They still believe that maybe Russia will be defeated one way or the other, even though over the past 3 years, Russia has demonstrated that it cannot be defeated. The country has vast resources. It has the second largest and strongest military in the world, and it has the world's largest nuclear arsenal. So it's either it will win in Ukraine or we will have a third world war. And the Europeans fail to understand that so far, but the Americans do. President Trump has reckoned that continuing this escalatory scheme with Russia will have devastating consequences. Therefore, he is trying to mediate a peace. Of course, now he's pressuring the Russians because the Russians are not being reasonable enough, according to the Americans. They are being very stringent in their negotiating position. They refuse to give any concessions and are only interested in dictating their own conditions for a settlement. So the Americans might be trying to pressure the Russians by threatening with sanctions and maybe even by hinting that they might provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. Even though this will be a very dangerous escalation, I do not believe that it will have any detrimental effect on Russia's battlefield capabilities. Russia has, according to many military experts and observers, maintains the military initiative, the battlefield initiative in Ukraine. They are steadily advancing in the Donbass, in Kharkiv, and in Zaporozhia. It doesn't seem that the Ukrainians are able to turn the tide at this point, despite all the Western armaments they have received. They have received F-16s, HIMARS missile artillery. They have received multiple artillery systems. They have received many cruise missiles from Germany and France and Britain, Storm Shadow and others, and yet they did not regain the strategic initiative, and Russia controls over 20% of Ukraine and is still advancing. And of course, Russia's military production infrastructure far exceeds that of Europe. So Europe is not even being realistic when they try to compete with Russia in terms of military production, for example. So I believe it's a non-starter to begin with, and it's either that this war of attrition will go on for a few more months or even a few more years until a settlement is reached when all parties agree that a decisive military solution is not possible, or this war will continue on this escalatory track, which will lead to a potential conflict between NATO and Russia, which neither Russia nor NATO actually wants. So NATO is playing a very dangerous game, and I hope they know what they're doing.
Always great learning from you, Osman. Thank you very much for that insightful expertise and sharing that.